Hello everyone. Today we're going to break down the current situation with Hedera and its HBAR token. If you follow the crypto market, you know that January 2026 has brought both positive news and price challenges for this project. Let's understand what's really happening behind the scenes and why analysts remain optimistic despite the current price decline. Part 1. Current market situation. Price and market position. As of January 25, 2026, HBAR is trading in the range of 0.109 to 0.112 per token. At first glance, this might seem like a low price, but context matters. Hedera currently ranks 29th among all cryptocurrencies by market capitalization, with a total value of around $9 to $10 billion. Over the last week, HBAR has lost between 7 and 15% of its value. This reflects a broader bearish trend in the crypto market overall. Volatility remains high around 5% per day. For many traders, this means the market is in a state of repricing and uncertainty. However, here we encounter an interesting paradox. Despite this, institutional investors and major players are demonstrating growing interest in HBAR. We'll discuss this in more detail later. Technical levels. For those who follow technical analysis, here are the key levels you need to understand. Resistance is at the 0.127. This is the 50-day exponential moving average that is currently blocking upward price movement. The current price is forming what analysts call a W bottom pattern. This is important because such a pattern often precedes significant price explosions. The first trough was around 0.095, the second around 0.102. If HBAR can break through the resistance level at the 0.127, analysts see the following target levels: 0.135, 0.152, and even 0.176 in the short term. On the downside, if there's a pullback, watch for support at 0.102. If the price falls below that, liquidation risk will spike to 4.5 million, which could trigger a panic sell-off. Part 2. Revolution in institutional demand. Canary Capital's ETF. One of the most interesting pieces of news from recent months is the launch of a spot HBAR ETF by Canary Capital. As of January 21, 2026, this ETF has accumulated over 521 million HBAR. That sounds like an enormous number, and it is. For context, the fixed maximum supply of HBAR is 50 billion tokens. This means that the Canary Capital ETF already controls more than 1% of all HBAR that will ever exist. In a single week, inflows into this ETF totaled to 1.46 million, and this is the highest figure for all of 2026 so far. What does this mean in practice? It means that when people talk about institutional demand, they're not exaggerating. Real money from serious investors is flowing into HBAR. Unusual exchange withdrawal pattern. There's one very interesting technical indicator that experienced traders pay attention to: the withdrawal of tokens from spot exchanges. Under normal circumstances, most tokens remain on exchanges because people are ready to sell them at any time. But something unusual happened on January 18 and 19. The volume of withdrawals from spot exchanges surged 150% from 882,000 to 2.22 million. This indicates that people are massively removing HBAR from spot exchanges into cold wallets. Along with this comes growing ETF demand. This is a classic combination that often precedes significant price movement. When tokens leave exchanges and demand is growing, supply decreases, and price rises according to basic economics. Part 3. Strategic partnerships on a global scale. Expansion of the Hedera Council. The Hedera Council is essentially the board of directors of the decentralized network. Unlike centralized companies, where the board is appointed by shareholders, In Hedera, it's a collection of the most influential companies in the ecosystem, which make decisions about network development. As of January 2026, the council includes 31 organizations. This includes Fortune 500 companies, major financial institutions, and leading universities. In December 2025, an important event occurred. Repsol joined the council. If you're not familiar with who they are, Repsol is one of the world's largest energy conglomerates, appearing on the Fortune Global 500 list. It's a Spanish company, but with a global network of operations. Repsol joined Hedera specifically to develop a decentralized digital identifier DID for the energy sector. This isn't just a partnership for appearances. It means that one of the world's largest energy companies sees value in Hedera's technology and plans to implement it. Global Blockchain Business Council. In that same December, another event occurred that might be even more significant. The Global Blockchain Business Council (GBBC) became Hedera's first official strategic partner. The GBBC is an organization that brings together over 100 companies from various industries and influences global policy regarding blockchain and cryptocurrencies. When such an organization selects a specific blockchain as a strategic partner, it means that at the level of global policy and standardization, Hedera gets powerful support. Practical significance: the GBBC will help Hedera influence international standards for tokenized assets, digital identifiers, and other innovations. This creates a very strong competitive advantage for Hedera over other blockchains. Part 4. Technological Innovations. Asset Tokenization Studio. One of the most interesting developments in the Hedera ecosystem is the Asset Tokenization Studio platform. To simplify, it's a tool that allows companies and financial institutions to convert real-world assets into digital tokens. This sounds abstract? Let's provide examples. Imagine a commercial building worth $100 million. Using the Asset Tokenization Studio, it can be converted into 100 million tokens worth one each. Now hundreds of investors can own this building without transferring millions of dollars. In November and December 2025, Hedera expanded the functionality of this platform by integrating a new standard, ERC 3643. If you're not familiar with token standards, just remember, this means that now tokens can be issued on Hedera that fully comply with regulatory requirements in different countries. ERC 1400 is used in the United States, ERC 3643 for global cross-border cases. The platform's tools are fully open source, meaning any company can use them without paying Hedera licensing fees. Real-world implementation examples. But the most interesting part is that this is working in practice. Lloyds Banking Group, one of the UK's largest banks, together with Aberdeen Investments and Archax, executed the UK's first currency transactions on the Hedera network, where tokenized real-world assets were used as collateral. There's another example. Red Swan, with Hedera's help, is tokenizing property worth over $5 billion. This is primarily commercial real estate that becomes accessible to investors through tokens. Do you understand what this means? It means that the infrastructure for a global economy of real assets on the Hedera blockchain is actively being built in real time. Part 5. SWIFT and integration into payment systems. SWIFT testing. The Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication (SWIFT) is a system through which approximately 6 trillion flows daily. It controls international payments between banks. SWIFT is slowly but surely preparing to migrate to a new international standard, ISO 20022, and as part of this migration, it's testing various blockchain solutions to improve its infrastructure. Hedera and XRP are both main candidates for integration with SWIFT. The tests conducted in partnership with Consensus include testing both solutions. But Hedera has a significant advantage. Hedera is capable of processing over 0 transactions per second. For context, Bitcoin can process about 7 transactions per second, Ethereum approximately 13. Hedera is roughly 770 times faster than Bitcoin. Furthermore, Hedera is incredibly energy efficient. It uses a consensus model called Hashgraph, which requires far less energy than proof-of-work algorithms like Bitcoin or Ethereum. If Swift chooses Hedera as its primary blockchain for its new infrastructure, this could be the event that changes the entire cryptocurrency market. We're talking about trillions of dollars flowing through a single Hedera-based system. Part 6. CME Infrastructure. Pricing Index Launch. At the end of December 2025, an event occurred that went unnoticed by many people, but it's very significant. CME Group, a massive futures exchange that controls pricing for most global assets, announced the launch of a regulated pricing index for HBAR. The index is called CME CF Hedera Dollar Real-Time Index, or HBAR RTI for short. It was launched on December 29, 2025. What does this mean? It means that CME Globexone, of the world's largest exchanges now, provides an official, U.S.-regulated price feed for HBAR. It includes daily reference rates and continuous pricing. Why does this matter? Because it places HBA into the mainstream institutional financial infrastructure of the world. When major investors and portfolio managers see that a token has official pricing from CME, they understand it's a serious asset, not some speculative project. This is a very strong legitimacy signal for HBAR. Part 7. Ecosystem Funding and Support. $7 billion grant. In December 2025, the Hedera Council announced extraordinarily generous funding for the Hedera Foundation. We're talking about a $7 billion HBAR grant. For context, if HBAR is worth 0.11, that's approximately $770 million in cash. The first installment of 3.5 billion HBAR was made in February 2025. These funds are being used for: first, supporting developers and ecosystem builders. This means grants to teams creating applications and services based on Hedera. Second, subsidizing real-world asset tokenization experiments. Hedera is financing pilot projects that test new ways to use blockchain for the real world. Third, developing applications based on decentralized digital identifiers. This is future technology that will allow people to control their personal information without needing to trust centralized companies. This shows that Hedera has a long-term vision and the resources to execute it. Part 8. Analyst Price Predictions. Short-term forecasts. Various analytical platforms and crypto analysts have provided their predictions for 2026. Changelly, a popular cryptocurrency exchange service, predicts that HBAR could trade in the range of 0.1715 to 0.2041 throughout 2026. This means that at the current price of 0.11, potential gains would be 85%. CoinCodex, another popular analytics platform, provides a more aggressive 36-month forecast. They see a range from 0.45 to 0.8. This represents potential gains of 4-7 times over 3 years. Long-term and optimistic forecasts. There are more aggressive analysts. For example, a crypto analyst known as CryptoXAman suggests that if the market continues its expansion, HBAR could reach 1-2. This would represent a 10-20x increase. The consensus of various analysts for the long-term period 2030 and beyond suggests a price around 1.7-2.2. However, this assumes massive adoption of real-world asset tokenization and digital identifiers. Important point: Those analysts who believe HBAR will reach $1 and beyond assume that corporate adoption will occur on a massive scale. They assume that banks, insurance companies, logistics companies, and other major players will begin actively using Hedera for their operations. To date, this hasn't happened at full scale, but pilot projects and partnerships suggest it's quite possible. Part 9. Risks and Challenges. High volatility and liquidation risk. Although Hedera news looks very positive, there are substantial risks you need to understand. First, HBAR is a highly volatile asset. 5% daily volatility means that price can fluctuate 5-15% per week. For conservative investors, this might be too risky. Second, there's liquidation risk. As we discussed earlier, if HBAR falls below that 0.114, a wave of liquidations totaling 4.5 million could be triggered. This could lead to a panic price crash. Dependence on broader market trends. HBAR, like most altcoins, is heavily dependent on overall crypto market sentiment. If Bitcoin falls, altcoins often fall too. If fear dominates the market, people sell riskier assets in favor of stablecoins or fiat currency. The cryptocurrency market's Fear and Greed Index currently shows a value of 25 out of 100, which means extreme fear. In such conditions, even great news might not support price. Uncertainty. Regarding real-world adoption. While pilot projects and partnerships look great, real massive adoption of asset tokenization remains uncertain. Regulators in many countries haven't yet fully determined how exactly to regulate this space. In the United States, Europe, Asia debates are still ongoing about how to properly regulate digital assets and tokens. Unfavorable regulation could slow the adoption of the technology by several years. Part 10. Conclusion and Recommendations. Current Circumstances. Hedera is in a very interesting and contradictory situation. On one hand, the fundamental developments are simply impressive. New partnerships, technological innovations, growing institutional interest, all of this points to Hedera solving real problems for real companies. On the other hand, the price is falling. This creates a scenario that the crypto community calls buying the dip. When a project shows excellent fundamental data, but the price falls, this often means there's a panic outflow in the market for reasons unrelated to the project itself. For different types of investors, if you're a long-term investor with a 5-10 year horizon and you believe in the adoption of real-world asset tokenization, then current price levels could be interesting. The ETF from Canary Capital provides a simple way to gain long-term exposure to HBAR. If you're a medium-term trader, weeks to months, then the current technical W bottom pattern looks promising. The 0.127 resistance level is the first target for a breakout. If you're a short-term trader, remember the volatility and liquidation risks. A stop loss should be clearly defined before entering a position. If you're a conservative investor looking for stability, then HBAR is not the best choice at this moment. Consider more stable alternatives. What to watch in the near future? First, the breakout above the 0.127. If this happens on increasing volume, it will give the green light for further growth. Second, the continuation of the ETF withdrawal pattern from exchanges. If withdrawals continue and ETF demand remains high, this is a favorable sign. Third, news about major corporate implementations. If we hear that, for example, JP Morgan or another major bank begins using Hedera for its operations at full scale, this could be a catalyst for significant price gains. Fourth, developments regarding SWIFT. If information emerges that SWIFT is choosing Hedera as its primary platform for new infrastructure, this would be a world-changing event. Final word. Hedera is a project worth watching carefully. Not because it's guaranteed to skyrocket in price, but because it solves real problems and is attracting serious institutional attention. There's a real possibility that in 5 years, Tokenization of real-world assets will be the norm in the financial system, and Hedera will be one of the main platforms for this. But there are real risks as well. The technology might face regulatory obstacles. Competitors might create better solutions. The market might simply lose interest in this direction. As always in crypto invest, only as much as you can afford to lose. Do your own research. Don't invest based on internet recommendations solely. Your own analysis and critical thinking. This concludes our analysis of HBAR. Thank you for your attention.